Hi, I'm Jesse with the Turning Post, and today's project we're going to be turning a whiskey tumbler. It's a fairly simple project. It gives you the opportunity to practice those techniques. You'll be turning between centers to start out. We're going to make a tenon, and we're going to be putting it in a chuck, and then toward about the third step, we're going to be hollowing it out. So it's going to give you a chance to practice those techniques. Also, when we finish, it's going to be it could be a nice gift for a family member or for a friend. So if you'll stay with me, we can turn one of these together. I want to thank you all for tuning in. So let me get set up and I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Now, I've got a piece of wood. I've got a piece of white oak. It's 5 inches long and it's a 3x3. And we're not going to use this entire piece of wood for the whiskey tumbler. We're only going to use about 3.5 inches of it. But the rest of it we're going to use to make a jam chuck a little later on when we get ready to cut this off and finish off the bottom. First thing we're going to do is I always advise to use some kind of head protection or some eye protection, and also some lung protection such as a respirator. So use a shield or use some glasses. So now what we're going to do is we're going to find the center. We're going to find the center at both ends. And now we're going to go through step one. We're going to attach it between centers. I'm using a steb center and a revolving center on the tailstock. We're just going to turn this round and set up our tenon. Now, there is a difference between a tenon and a spigot. A tenon, you will be required to put a dovetail on it in a lot of cases, whereas a spigot is a tenon that is completely straight. So now what I'm going to use, I'm using a 1 1/4 inch spindle gouge. I'm going to follow the bevel, and we're going to turn this round. My speed is about 22,000 to 2,500 RPM. When you're turning something this small, speed is your friend, so it doesn't hurt to turn it at 2,000 to 2,500 RPM. You get a better cut. Almost. And it's really necessary to follow the bevel. All right, now we've got that round. The next thing I'm going to do is prepare for my tenon. I know that I'm using an easy wood chuck. I know that my jaws, the depth is 3/8 of an inch. I do not want to go all the way down to the bottom. So I usually make my tenon about 1/4 of an inch in length. I want to close my jaws as much as possible. So I usually make the diameter about 1 5/8 to 1 3/4. I'm using outside calipers, and I've got this already to 1 3/4. Make sure that if you're going to use this while the lathe is turning, you barely touch it and you keep this away from you. So I'm going to be using a skew, and I'll be using a peeling cut. You can use a parting tool. What's important is to keep your shoulder square. As I use this peeling cut, I'm pushing in and I'm raising my back hand as I push in. Again, touch it barely. Okay, I got that. It's perfect. I'm gonna clean this up. Now, there's two ways to put a dovetail on this tenon. You can use a spindle gouge, or you can use a skew. I'm using a 3/8 inch spindle gouge, and the dovetail doesn't need to be very deep. Enough so that your jaws on your chuck will grab it. And that's it. We're finished with step one. So let me go ahead, we'll get this prepared, and we'll go to step two. Okay, we're back. Now, I've taken out my step center, and I have put this in my chuck, and if your shoulder is square, it'll run true, which it does. So now my next step is to measure down 3.5 inches. Make my mark. Now in this case, I am going to use a parting tool, and I'm going to part just to the left of my line. So I've measured down 3.5 inches. I know that the diameter of my opening is going to be 2.5 to 2 5/8 inches. That's not in stone. That's not written in stone. So I want to have a little relief on this side so I can make the barrel type profile. Again, I'm using a peeling cut. That should be enough. And now what I need to do, I want to find the center. I want this to look as much like a barrel as I can. So I look at 3.5 inches, and half of that should be 1 3/4. I make a mark. Now I'm going to start tapering or rounding over these two ends. And I do mine with a 5/8 inch spindle gouge. I just want to do a little bit. Take light cuts. Remember, all you have is that chuck holding this. It does require sharp tools. And now that I have that started, I'm going to go back to my 1 1/4 inch roughing gouge and start shaping the profile. Now I did say I'm wanting a diameter about 2.5 to 2 5/8 inches. Again, that's not written in stone. I'm looking for a nice profile to look like a barrel. Okay, I got that one formed. Let's go to the other side. And if you'll notice, as I am cutting this, I'm not moving my arms, I'm moving my body. I'm taking very light cuts. And when you're happy with that profile, you're finished. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to sand. And when I sand, if my profile is not where I want it, I will start out with 80 grit and shape that profile, and then I'll go to 120, 220, and 320. I don't go any higher than that because if you use 400 and above, it's going to block all your pores, and so when you put your finish on it, it won't be absorbed into your glass. So my profile looks great, so I'm just going to start out with a 120 grit. And really, you should turn your speed down to less than 1,700 RPMs. I'll probably do mine at about 13. Anything higher than that, you run your sandpaper and you burnish the piece of wood. I think I will just use a little bit of 80 grit. Make it nice and smooth. Now I'll come back to my 120 grit. .220. Now, when you shut off your lathe and you're looking at it and you see marks of any kind in it, take a piece of sandpaper that you were using and go with the grain and rub out those scratches. You should check it after each grit. So now that I got that, I'm going to do my 320. Okay. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to put water on this. I'm going to spray it with some water. I want to raise the grain. And then I'm going to sand it again with 320. And the grain should not raise after that. Always protect your lathe. Okay, and spray it. Just wipe that down. And when you're in a hurry, you can always use a heat gun. And we'll dry this out and we'll raise that grain. Okay, we have that finished. Let's take our 320 grit sandpaper. And touch it up. And that's about as smooth as you want to get it. Now I've got 2 more little steps I need to finish. I want to put metal rings on this, like you see on a barrel. So I measure up a 1/2 inch, and my rings are 3/8 of an inch in width from the bottom, and also from the top. I go in a 1/2 inch, and then 3/8. Make our mark. Now, to make these grooves, you can do it one of 2 ways. You can either use a skew, or you can use a pointed tool. I use a pointed tool. Don't need to go down very deep. I'll take a brush. I know that it's going to be a little rough here because I've raised that a little bit. So I use a paintbrush that does not have nylon bristles. And this is real hair. I cut it very short, and that takes care of my problem there. Now I have a burning wire, and this is made by Easy Wood. And I'll use this to burn in my lines. And when you're burning this, again, it will kind of raise up like a spur. And so I'll take that brush again, or you can use 4/0 steel wool, or you can even use shavings. Clean that up. Now I'm going to use a black Sharpie. I'm going to turn this down to about 200 RPM. And I want to color in between my burnt lines. The reason I have it going slow is because the faster you go, all you're going to do is ruin the tip. So this means I can color it a lot better. I got the tip pointing down. You can also use what they call a Tobo, which is a brand name, and it's called a painted pencil. And it's water-based, which is perfect for what I want to use it for, because all I'm going to use is mineral oil. Now, we've got this pretty much completed. My last step is mineral oil. I'm going to apply that and my conditioner. And the conditioner is beeswax, a mixture of beeswax and mineral oil. I'm going to turn this off. Rub this in. Now if you get this on your lathe, it's not a bad deal because it's an oil. It just makes your banjo travel better on the way. And we're going to buff this out like you do with friction polish. Buff this out. And my last thing, I'm going to apply the conditioner. Once we get this done, the profile in step 2 is finished. Mineral oil and conditioner can be purchased at a Woodcraft or Lowe's, or maybe even Home Depot might have it. Okay, rub that in. And again, we're going to buff this out. And now we're finished with step 2. So let me get prepared for step 3. We'll start hollowing. Okay, I'm back now. Now we're going to start step 3. First thing we're going to do, we're going to use a Forstner bit. We're going to drill out a hole. The final depth of this cup is going to be about 2 3/4 of an inch. We take out as much as we can with this Forstner bit, and then we kind of smooth it out and hollow it out. I'll take this Forstner bit down to about 2 1/4, 2 1/2 inches. And down at the very, very bottom, I leave a cup. Let me turn it so you can see. I make a cup down here, kind of rounded down here like a cove. That's where the bourbon will sit in there, and it keeps the aroma and the flavor. So now let me turn to this end grain. Now, when you're drilling this out, I've measured, and this is about where I need to go. You hollow it out, or you drill it out using a Forstner bit, less than 500 RPM. And make sure that you clear it often, because we don't want our Forstner bit to go off center. Just clear it out. Okay, now we've got that. Let's take this out. Turn it off. Now we're going to start to hollow. Now, one thing about the shavings, people will sweep them up and throw them away. Well, you might want to hang on to those shavings, because if you get into making smokers for the whiskey, you can use those shavings to smoke it. So, what I use for this now, I have an Easy Wood mid-size #1 hollower. I like it because it's got a small tip on it, and it cuts real nice. It's not aggressive, or as aggressive, and so I don't have to worry about using a big cutter like you have with a finisher. You can also use, if you know how, you can also use a bowl gouge or a 3/8 or a 5/8 inch spindle gouge. Now, if you have a reverse on your lathe, that really works in your favor, because then you're able to see what you're turning. So let me get a light plugged up here so we can see. Okay. So let's take a look at the depth of it right now. My depth is, I'm at 2 1/2 inches, so I got 1/4 of an inch I can play with. I wouldn't go any less or any deeper than that, because you get your 3 1/2 inches in length on your glass, so that gives you about 3/4 of an inch down at the bottom. So I like to keep my bottom fairly heavy so that my glass doesn't tip over. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put mine in reverse, and we're going to turn this thing, we're going to start hollowing it out. It's very important to take light cuts, and I'm looking for a wall thickness of about 1/4 of an inch. I'm not going to take any less than 1/4 of an inch. If you do, you might end up having some cracks like you have right here, and this is probably because it's been in the cold and I didn't put any conditioner and mineral oil on it. So let me go ahead and switch our camera angle. So now you can watch the hollowing. This is where it becomes fun. Remember, take light cuts. I'm trying to follow the profile on the inside of this barrel. Now I'm going to try to start making that little cove down at the bottom of my barrel. Okay, let me blow this out. All righty, I'm going to feel it. Now there's a couple of ways that you can gauge your wall thickness. You can have a gauge itself, like I have here, and I've got this marked at 1/4 of an inch, or you can make your own. You can make it out of a clothesline, a clothes hanger, or even a paper clip. I'm still a little bit thick, so I'm going to take out a little bit more. Now I do have a little nipple down here at the bottom, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to forward, so I can take out that nipple as I finish my side. All right, let's check that wall thickness. First of all, I want to feel it to see how smooth it is. And let me blow it out. Okay, let's check that thickness. That's fine right there. Now understand, as you go down, it's going to be a little thicker because you got a curvature down here, like a ball. I've taken out the nipple, and I'm happy with the side. It's smooth. And I'm happy with the wall thickness. So now, I'm going to go ahead and sand this. Again, You can start out with, if you want to make sure you want to make that thickness or your profile a lot better, then you can start out with 80 grit. And again, I'm only going to take it down to 320 grit. Now, on the inside, I will not finish it out with mineral oil or the conditioner. I will leave it as it is, because if a customer doesn't want to have it charred, when they put their bourbon in here, it will season the inside. And if you put mineral oil in here and the conditioner, it's going to mix with your bourbon, and I don't think you're going to want that flavor. So let's go ahead and sand this now. Okay. I think I'll drop that speed down just a little bit. There we go. Now, like I did with the outside, I'm going to put water on the inside. We're going to clean this out. We're going to raise that grain on the inside, so when we do apply the bourbon to it, it won't raise the grain, and it'll start to season right off from the very beginning. Got that. Again, we're going to cover our lathe. You don't have to saturate it. I just want enough in there so it raises that grain. Wipe it around. I like that. Looking nice. Let's get our heat gun. And we'll dry it out. Okay, one more step. I should say one more small step in this step, and we'll have this completed. So all I got to do now is take that 320 grit sandpaper, and we'll sand this out. Okay. And sand this a little bit more. I'll make sure I get that bottom, get it nice and smooth down there. There we go. There we go. All right. Now, got one more thing to do here, and that is to round over this edge so that it's comfortable. There we go. Now I'll sand that. And we'll be through with step 3. Okay, now let's wipe this out. And I will put a little bit around the lip here. And now we have finished step 3. Now we're on to step 4. Let me get set up and I'll be right back. All right. Well, first of all, if you all are still with me, I want to thank you all for being with me. We're here on step 4. We're getting ready to cut this off. And so when I cut this off, I use a very thin parting tool, which is like a 1/16 of an inch. And so when I start to part this, I have to make sure I leave enough space so that this doesn't bind. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this up, turn the speed up high, and once I get to a certain point of thickness, before I cut it off, I will turn my lathe down to less than 1,000 RPM. If you want to cut it off with a parting tool while the lathe is still running, if your speed is less than 1,000 RPM, this won't go flying on you. If you don't feel comfortable with that, use a saw and cut it off. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this off while the lathe is still running, just to show you what it will do. I'm at 900 RPM. Don't get your hand caught in the chuck. I've got a light grip on my cup. There it is. Now, I would take the rest of this and make a jam chuck out of it to where it fits into my glass. I don't want it too tight, because if you get it too tight, it could crack. So I'm going to make it to where it's a loose, what you call a loose tight fit, and then I will use paper towel to make it tighter. And what that paper towel does, it gives it a little flexibility. So it just so happens, I'll be doggone, I've got a jam chuck made already. So I won't waste my time making one. All I can say is take it down to a certain point when you're making that chuck, a jam chuck, and then make sure you fit it to your glass. So let me take this off now. Put the jam chuck in. Make sure it turns true. Which it does. And now I'm going to put my glass on it. And this is probably the toughest part, is to make sure it's balanced. Okay. Now that doesn't happen every day. Oh my goodness. What a break. Sometimes that happens. That's perfect. So now what I want to do is I am going to bring up my tailstock to get a little bit of support. Let's get a little bit of support. While I clean up the bottom. Now with my bottom, I want a little bit of a taper. I want a little bit of a taper in here so that it sits flat on the table. I think I got that too close. Back it off. There we go. There we go. Now, I use a 3/8 inch spindle gouge to clean this up. So what I'm going to do is, my flute is at 3 o'clock. I'm going to touch the very bottom. I'm going to give it support, and then once I get that crease in here, then I'm going to turn it to 230 and take it on across, following the bevel. So let's do that. Now I'm going to open it up. 230. Light cut. I'm riding the bevel. Now, if everything's worked out the way I hope it did, you'll have a little bit of vacuum on the inside of this glass, which will help hold it, but you still have to take light cuts. And so what I'm going to use a cut pushing toward my chuck. Light cuts. And the reason I do that is because if I went the other way with it, it's a possibility it would separate from my jam chuck. Remember, all you have is that jam chuck holding this. Light cuts, take your time. Take little bitty bites. All right. Now I'm going to finish with the sanding, and I'll put the mineral oil and my conditioner on the bottom. Again, I think I'll turn that down. There we go. I got a little bit of a wiggle in it, but I'm doing the bottom so it doesn't really hurt it. Okay, finished out that profile. Now I'll take the 120. .220. And 320. Okay, there we go. And now take some of this oil. I think we got a lot of oil. That's okay. It'll suck it all up. That's good. Let's buff it out. And now let's take our conditioner. Got that. And there we have it. So let me go ahead and let's clean up around here, and I'll be right back. All right, there you have it. We have a whiskey tumbler here. Now, when you take this thing off, gently take it off, because if you bind it somewhere, you could crack it. So just ease it off, and there we have it. A nice tumbler, and I'll let you see the inside here. There's that inside. See how you got that little curvature down there? That's what you want, because the bourbon will sit down in here and it will keep the aroma and the flavor. Well, I hope you all had as much fun doing this as I did. I want to thank you all for tuning in and watching this, and I hope it was beneficial to you, and I hope you got something out of it. If you liked what you saw today, I'd appreciate it if you would like and subscribe to my channel, and that helps me continue turning more projects. I plan on turning another project. It's going to be I call it a twin bell. It's a twin bell Christmas ornament. And yes, I know Christmas has come and gone, and I apologize. I would have liked to have gotten this out earlier, but the time didn't allow. But this will give you about a good 11 months to perfect this and make some for your family and friends. It's a lot of fun to make. Again, you'll be doing some hollowing on this, and I hope to be doing that here in the next couple of weeks or so. But again, thank you so much. I want to put a shout out to Jason Kang, who is a member of our Wood Turning Association, who a couple of months ago gave a class on this, on the bell, on these twin bells, and did an excellent job. So also I want to give a shout out to John Fulbright, who has been here with me and helped me along with this, the filming of this video. And again, please like and subscribe to this channel. If you have any questions, please ask them down below. I entertain these questions, and I enjoy the questions that you give me. So if there's anything I can do for you, please don't hesitate to contact me. Until we meet again, God bless and take care.